Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Love of Life podcast. And here we are on that. I just can't. Okay. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Every
Thank
time
you
I looked at
very
you,
much.
you looked at the camera, and every time we switched.
I know. We definitely couldn't do like NBC or Olympic
They
sports.
tell you where to look, I
or
think.
something. I was actually noticing the other night we were watching a sporting event, watching our St. Louis Blues lose, which was so annoying. But one of the things between periods was like this gal and this guy were talking, and he was looking at the camera, and then she would look at him, and it was like this back and forth kind of like funny thing where he would talk, and then she would look, but when she was looking at the camera, she would just have to smile, and I was thinking how awkward that was. So while he's talking, she's doing this.
It's hard
And
to hold a smile
she was
for that
holding
long.
a smile
Yeah,
for
it's
longer
hard.
than what was natural. I mean, I commend her for her work. She looked almost natural doing it, but it just is like weird. It's kind of weird when you think about it. Like you're looking at a camera and you're doing this fake smile bit kind of thing. I don't know. It's just kind of fun. Anyway, are you waiting for us to get on topic?
I mean, if you want to talk about fake smiling, we can.
I think it's a fun topic to talk about.
Yeah. It's kind of fun for pictures to purposely fake smile.
Yes.
It looks funny.
Right. Yeah, very much so. So today is May 6th, 2025.
That's right.
What happened on May 6th, 2008?
We met.
We did! We did!
Yeah, it's our meet-iversary.
It's a meet-iversary. That's right. 203 months ago. And I asked Grok. I said, how many hours and how many days? Let me get it. Just because I think it's kind of fun to see that kind of thing. Like, how long has it actually been? Okay, so it's been 6,576 days, 157,804 hours.
Wow.
Does it feel like no time at all has flown by?
I feel like it has gone fast. I also think we can look back and be like, oh, wow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
Different seasons, different periods of life,
Lot of
especially
life.
first meeting. But yeah, we've gone through a lot and had a lot of children added to our home. And so in that sense, it's like, yeah, it sounds about right. But also like we're old enough to have done something 17 years ago, like as adults.
I still don't feel old enough to have 6 kids or
Yeah.
even 1 kid sometimes.
Yeah.
Or sometimes even be married. I'm just saying, like, it's just crazy to think of how time flies. And 1 minute you're a young teenager or a young 20-something-year-old, and then you get married, and then you have real life, real responsibilities. Not that it wasn't real life before; it was great preparation for life. And
Time goes a lot slower, though.
Yeah, it does.
Time goes a lot slower as a kid, and then even I think pre-married and certainly pre-kids. I think because you have a lot more time at your leisure, a lot more time to fill, and then there are seasons where when you're hoping for that spouse and they haven't arrived yet, you almost have too much time. Mm-hmm. That can be kind of a lonely season.
When did you first notice how time was really moving fast? When was that?
Yesterday? No, way before then. I don't know. It's hard to know in the moment, you know.
I felt like it was when we started having kids.
I guess
because
so.
I feel like we were kids when we got married at 20 whatever,
Yeah.
22, 23 years old.
Certainly when we see pictures now.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We were babies having babies.
But time really moved fast once we had kids and
Yeah.
once you are doing real jobs and working 40 hours a week or whatever. I think that's when time went, oh wow, like this is really moved. Like the years were slipping by much faster. Then remember when we were kids and the summer would come and it felt like summer lasted forever.
Forever. For years.
And now, in the last 3 or 4 summers that we've had, we homeschool the kids, and it feels like our break in between is just so fast. The summer flies by so quick.
Yeah.
So fast.
I also think really happy times and really hard times, life slows down a little.
That's so true.
No,
Yeah.
fast times it speeds up.
Fast times it speeds up.
Fast times it speeds
Yep.
up. Hard
And
times it slows down a little.
Yeah, during seasons of when times are hard and work is hard or whatever, it definitely is like, this week took forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Well, let's talk about the first day that we met and the providence of God and how all of that led to us being married and having 6 kids and doing what we do today and all that kind of. We're not telling our whole life story, but let's talk about May 6th, 2008 for a minute.
Okay. I think the crazy thing is that there's really one day and moment in time that we can point to and go, wow, if that day hadn't happened exactly how it did, and the Lord leading us both to be right where we were in that moment, like everything that's reality right now, as far as our family life goes, wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
Which is why, you just trust in the Lord's providence, because then you go into that whole like butterfly effect thing, and that just trips your mind out.
Yeah.
So yes, providentially, May 6th, I had a final that I had just gotten done taking. It was an evening class, and I was heading back to my dorm where I was supposed to hang out with a friend of mine, and there happened to be a white wood gazebo right outside my dorm building. And some of my friends were in there who happened to be your friends as well. We had never met, never even seen one another on campus, but some of my friends started hollering at me to come over. So as I walk up into this white gazebo, I see this cute guy with long surfer blonde hair playing guitar. And it was you.
It was me.
Do you want to say what you were playing? What song?
You can't bring it up and then me not say it. So
Yeah,
fine, I'll say it. It was Hero by Enrique Iglesias.
I
Which
love
is
that.
so corny and tacky to say now, but it's somehow so fitting too that it's
It
just
is.
like whatever.
I mean, it already sounds kind of like
a
movie and an unbelievable like.
It does. We've told it to
how
some.
cheesy.
We've told it to some people, and some people go, "Oh, that's so great! That's so great!" And then other people are like, "What? Are you kidding? You're lying!" Like, no, that's really how we met. That's
In
really
a white
what happened.
gazebo with you singing "You Could Be My Hero." Yeah.
That is how we met, and I still remember you walking over from your dorm for the first time, and your pretty little face walking over, and you had super short hair, and you were still beautiful, of course, but I remember seeing you for the very first time and talking to you for the first time. I think that's what's interesting. I don't know if everyone can recall their first meeting. I mean, some people can, but I've talked to some people, and they're like, yeah, we met, and they can't. It's kind of like this hazy recollection.
Yeah.
We can remember every
It was sharp.
detail practically.
Yeah.
Not every word of our conversation, but we can remember so much. That so much about that evening in that particular place stands out as a very providential moment in our life. And we don't have to get into the behind the scene, months behind the details before that or whatever, but just suffice it to say we were single when we needed to be. We were meeting at the right point in our life, in our own life history, that it was the perfect time. And what's interesting is completely outside of our own control.
Yes.
Like, we couldn't have conjured up, oh, I needed to meet the girl that God has given to me, that He will give to me eventually, and I'm going to bring it about in my own way and in my own time and how I see fit, how it needs to be. Like, I think, that was one of the first times in my life where I just sat back and I went, I'm just going to, enjoy life. And if the right girl comes along, great. But if she doesn't, whatever. I think that was the first time where I sat back and I was just, whatever about the whole relationship thing in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And it was like the right time to meet you.
It was the right time. Yeah, and actually, I even went to Lindenwood on a whim. I needed to go somewhere, and there wasn't really anywhere. I wanted to stay close-ish to home. And my aunt was like, have you guys looked at Lindenwood? I'd never even heard of it, which is crazy because it's not that far from my hometown. But my parents drove me there, and it was like the last day of open enrollment, the last day I could have signed up for classes. And I was going to be a commuter by the time I left and went through all their meet and sign up for things. They had me sign up as an RA to live on campus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
You weren't from that area. You had no real connections to
no,
people
I mean, it's like
or the
40
area.
minutes from
Yeah, but you had no
where I
connections
lived.
to it. It was
No.
I mean, the fact that you
It
were
was
there.
like, oh, there's a school in St. Charles?
Right.
Okay. Oh, this is the last day to sign up for classes? We don't have anywhere else to go. Okay. This will work.
Yeah.
That was my that was my research.
Thank God for your aunt. Thank God
Yes.
for your aunt who told you about Lindenwood.
Yes,
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, so I think that's the interesting thing is we meet, we hit it off. we have this great banter. We talk to one another, and there's definitely interest there. And it took what, a few weeks before we were hanging out, really getting to know one another, finding out that we were both believers. We had lots of things in common. I stole a kiss from you. That was fun. I've stolen a lot since. Yeah. So I think part of what we want to talk about too, it's not just us meeting and our story per se, but really just the true nature of the providential hand of God who works in our life when we are in prayer and we're seeking him, and how he fills the desires of our hearts. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those things are not within our own time. Sometimes it's not even within our own resources to bring about on our own. But I really believe the proverb that says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. Because I know in my own life as a man, I've received massive favor from the blessing that you are to me, that he has given you to me, right, okay, as a gift. I didn't plan this out. But I think that sometimes when we're waiting, what was that Rebecca St. James song? I'm waiting for, okay, yeah. But that's how young life is. And sometimes even if you're even an older person, and say you lost a spouse and you're wondering, am I ever going to meet somebody again? Am I ever going to get married? Whatever. Like, there's a sense of, God seeing us and God knowing what we need, and him being faithful and giving us what we need when we need it. And sometimes that's material possessions, sometimes that's fiscal, and sometimes that's literally a person in our life.
Yeah. I don't think it's just about your spouse. I think, it's all things. We wait for him, we trust him, we pray, and we just keep doing what we know to do. Because I think it's easy to see God's providential hand in retrospect, but it can be very hard in the moment when you're living it. Like, neither of us thought, oh, this is the day I'm going to meet the person that God has for me. Like, you're hoping for that, or you're thinking about that, or you're praying for that, but you're also just like living life. And it can be different things in different seasons, career or an opportunity or an open door or whatever it is you're needing in that season. But you don't know, okay, it's going to happen like this. And sometimes we like to say, like, oh, it could be this. You see an opportunity, and it's like, that could be the thing that we've been praying for, looking for. And then it's not. But so that's where, I guess, like, your trust has to be in the Lord and not in circumstances or things. But it's fun to look back. And now I feel like that is one of the benefits of the more years the Lord gives you. You have more of life to look back and say, oh, wow, like, we can talk about all of God's faithfulness in this circumstance, in this situation, this thing that was unclear and we weren't sure of, and then this is where he led us, and this is how he opened that door suddenly, or we were aiming for this, and then he had this plan instead. Because we talk about that even now, like the next thing you're waiting on the Lord for. Okay, what do? You be faithful with what's before you. You do what you know to do. You move. You do things. And you pray and you trust him and you try to be obedient to his word the best that you can. But the details are up to him.
Right.
He figures out how it's going to happen. And he brings things about that you couldn't have, that were outside of your knowledge, outside of your connection, outside of your know-how.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's rest in that.
There is rest in it. And there's also at times there's rest. I think there's a measure of when things are uncertain, walking by faith rather than by sight is sometimes moment by moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not like, oh yeah, I walk by faith and I'm good for the next year because I'm so full of faith. It's like sometimes you're walking and halfway through the day you're like, I don't know if I have the faith, but okay, I'm going to pray for it, and I'm going to, I need that, and then you receive it. But it's a moment by moment thing sometimes too.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I like though that
it is for me. I know
no,
you're not a regular Christian person.
I have days and moments for sure that I have to be reminded.
Uh-huh.
Okay, give thanks in all circumstances.
Yeah.
This is hard in this moment, but I'm not to grumble or complain. I'm to give thanks. And I think it's the Lord's grace that he tells us, he commands us not to worry.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I just think that that's awesome because no, it's not my natural tendency to worry, but the fact that not only is like, oh, you probably shouldn't do that. It's like, don't.
Yeah.
You're commanded not to. You're not to worry. You're not to fret. You're not to be anxious. Like that's what a good father
Yeah.
to say, no, don't do that. It's harmful. It doesn't bring about any good, and you don't have to. You can trust me. You can trust that I have the things figured out that you don't. You be faithful at your post, and then be content.
Yeah.
Be joyful.
Yeah.
Give thanks, and move on.
What would you say to, and one day you'll have to say this probably to our daughters, what will you say to an 18-year-old to 24, 25? It can be any really age range, but let's just put it between like 18 and 25 when people are obviously growing up, they're maturing, and hopefully and ideally they are looking at their life going, hey, I want to be a wife, and I want to be a homemaker, I want to be... I desire these things, but I don't have them yet, or the right person hasn't come along yet. What word of encouragement would you give? Because there was a long period of time where you were waiting, and you were faithfully waiting for the right man to come along.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard season to be in when you're longing for that. I think the advice I would give is to be close to your family and try to be useful and faithful right where you're at, and enjoy the time, because it seems like, well, I just want to be moving on in life and I want to have that, but the time that you have with your siblings, with your parents before you're married, like that's a short season.
Mm-hmm.
It goes away and you don't have it anymore. And not like once you're married, you're like, oh, I wish I was just at home. But like there is a blessing in that time to not have all the responsibility, to be able to spend the day doing whatever you want. Like that's, but to be useful. I should have spent more time learning some life skills, like how to cook. And it's not my mother's fault. She tried to teach me, but I was not interested. How much of my life is cooking? That's a very practical
right. But
skill.
I will say, just for the record, since you brought that up, you cook very well, and you have learned over the years great stuff. So.
I have. No, but when we first got married, I'm like, I don't know how to make chili.
It was slim pickings.
I have to call my mom.
It was
I
a
made
lot
like
of
the same things.
It was a lot of Subway sandwiches.
Yeah.
From
No, I love
Subway.
it. Chicken.
From Subway.
We had chicken and couscous and broccoli. A lot.
And it was a lot of Subway sandwiches and St. Louis Bread Company.
Yeah, we did that too.
Yeah.
For sure.
But
I
over the
don't know,
years,
to be
over the years,
useful.
you have garnered that skill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We all grow and we learn, and that's good.
Yeah.
But if you have, siblings that are younger than you that you can pour into, if you have nieces and nephews, if you have other people that you can get involved in their lives and use the benefits of that season of having more time to be a blessing to them, or to learn from, women who are older than you, life skills or, things you might need to know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a valuable way to spend that time.
Yeah.
What about you?
Hold on a minute. Let me follow up with one other question. So
Okay.
the girl's waiting, blah, blah, blah. How does the girl know? Because in your case, you figured out fairly quickly I was the right guy. There was still lots of course question marks in life that, we talked about this lately. Just, oh, wow, like I knew you, but I didn't really know you. And it takes long periods of time to really get to know someone, and you don't really know somebody until you really get married to them. I mean, that's the case.
Yeah, true.
But how would especially a Christian girl looking for a Christian guy, how would she know, okay, this is probably the right guy?
Well, for me personally, I wrote a list of things that I desired in a future spouse, and I did pray for you. I didn't know it was you for years, and that was kind of helpful, I think, just to have in your mind that, like, I'm praying for a person who really does exist on the planet that I haven't met yet, that I don't know, but in meeting other people, it would be like, this is a nice guy. This is a good guy. This is a Christian, but he's not really what I want.
Yeah.
It's just not there. That whatever is not there. So it's interesting. And I don't know. Obviously, like, you can look later and be like, some of the things on my list were maybe kind of silly. But
What was on your list?
that you would be buff. And probably because my dad works out, that was like a quality of something that I was like, that would be cool. A guy who understands working out and stuff. Like, yeah, I think a lot of girls, especially when they have good dads, want somebody a lot like their dad.
You got check mark, check.
Check.
You got that, babe.
That you would play guitar.
I do play guitar.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, are those the most important things? Like, no. But in my 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old mind, like, those are things
Sure.
like, that would be really cool. It
You
was
had
like my list of
aesthetics, really.
aesthetics. Yeah. That you'd be wise.
Okay.
That you would be love the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Those are important things.
Yeah.
I think I had that you'd be older than me, which you aren't. But that's okay.
Yeah, and that almost like shut her down right away.
For a minute, which is so silly.
It's so crazy that when you met me and you found out you were 6 months older than me, you almost just walked away at that moment.
At the time we met,
I can't
didn't know it
believe
was
that.
6. I'm saying I know it's ridiculous.
As a former homeschooler, I just want to say we don't care about ages nearly as much as you school people.
Yeah.
Who, public, private, whatever, but like private or public school or whatever school, it gets you in the dogma and the quagmire of actually caring about literal 6-month periods.
Well, I didn't know it
or
was 6
year
months.
long. Still,
But it seemed like a year.
Like,
okay. Also, though, I thought I'd marry a guy that was older than me. So
5 years up, 5 years down, somewhere in there, it's fine.
Yeah,
it
was
works.
fine. But I'm just saying, in my mind, that was what I was thinking. Okay. But then you were the same grade as me, so it was all right.
All right.
I know, it's silly. What I would have missed out on. So girls need to not be too rigid, I suppose, about things. But
Amen.
Anyway, you fit so much of my list, which I feel like is just, the Lord knows. He knows the desires of our hearts. And sometimes he so graciously fits that,
Right.
Even things that we sometimes don't even think to ask for, but we're like, oh, that's truly what I wanted. You know, he doesn't give us everything we want. But there are times we feel so known, so loved, so heard that he does answer very specifically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
That's
for
good.
you,
No.
for our sons,
Uh-huh.
when they're waiting, when they feel like there's no girl, and maybe they'll meet them, and they won't ever have to go through a period of like, oh, where is she? But if so, what's your advice to them?
Good luck, boys. No, I mean, I think that we have anecdotally our subjective experience that I will turn back the clock and I'll say, hey guys, here's what happened to me and mom. Here's how we met. And they already know our story a little bit. But there's the aspect and the element of saying, I spent however many years, even as a young person, going, I just want to be married. I just want to find the right woman, and she needs to love Jesus, and wants to raise a family, and she's got to have I had various criteria. She's got to be really pretty. You got that. That's good. But there's all of those elements and those things, and then there's the measure of, but I can't conjure her up, and I can't, just create the perfect person. There's lots of wonderful young women that I went to church with, and I think they probably make great, wonderful wives. None of them were for me, obviously. Mm-hmm. But there's I would just tell them that you just got to keep on the straight and narrow, and continue to pray and ask that you would also obtain favor from the Lord, because that is where a good wife comes from. It ultimately comes not from one's own, ability to bring her into existence, but from the God of the universe, who can see you right where you're at and go, boom, white gazebo, Lindenwood University, 2008, and right at the right time.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that myself. It's outside of my own power, my own control. But it'll be interesting because our boys are still very young, and it will be interesting because walking through just the daily or the weekly sense of I want something and it's not fulfilled in my own heart and desire. Again, to me, it goes back to just walking by faith momentarily, in moment by moment. So we'll see. And we'll see also how everyone handles their emotions and the way that they look at life and things even different. I think all of our boys are very different. And so each of them will probably have their own strengths in how they are approaching it and probable pitfalls or weaknesses that we'll have to coach in the moment. You know, it's like trying to say, hey, how are you going to coach the team 5 years from now? It's like, well, I think I know how to coach the team. And we have the right blueprint to do it. The Bible, the Word of God, prayer, past experience, family, friends. You know, we have like great things to piggyback on and to help them and aid them. But I think once that game starts, so to speak, I think that's when okay, this is how we're going to have to help or coach or help move along. I think one of the things that we do talk about a lot is we really do view that our children at hopefully young adult ages, not now, but when they're young adults, the goal is not to keep them in our house forever. The goal is not to keep them forever. The goal is to create what we have, which is you're going to be married to a woman, and it's for the sons, and you're going, and this person you're going to become one flesh with. It's perhaps the most important decision of your life to be with the person you're going to be with. If you miss this one, it's better to be on the corner of a housetop than with a contentious woman. So I think at the moment, at their ages right now, it's stressing the importance of if you're going to, when you get older and you look for a woman, you need to look for first and foremost a girl that, yes, you're attracted to, yes, you have mutual affections for and all that kind of stuff, but one that loves the Lord and you're mutually compatible on the things that matter most. Because we talk about this all the time, especially as we're raising kids. If you and I did not align spiritually, if we did not even align politically, theologically, whatever, like those big things, I cannot imagine marriage working out very well.
It would be hard.
Because when you're raising children, especially, you want to raise them and discipline them, pardon me, in the kinds of ways that are you're both in agreement with one another. Mm-hmm. And if you're not in agreement, then there's discord between the husband and the wife, and then that really just kind of wrecks some of the parenting along the way too. So the most important thing I would tell the boys as they get older is you want to marry a woman that knows the Lord, loves Jesus, and respects you. And first and foremost, respects her father, if her father is in her life, and they'll be able to watch that to some extent before they walk down the aisle. They'll be able to see, oh, this is how she treats her parents. This is how she treats not just me, but her peers. So those are some of the things that I think I would probably say and do as they get older.
Yeah.
Thinking through all of that.
Yeah. Well, you certainly don't know all the things that are going to happen in life. So to be married to somebody who loves the Lord already, then you're both seeking to walk in his ways. You have a similar aim, and it also makes you teachable as a person because you're asking the Lord to show you your sin. You're praying and seeing the word and seeing where you don't line up, and you're walking hopefully in continuous repentance and growing in sanctification. And then, teaching to raise your children in the same way, and you have the same goal for your home, for them. Yeah, it matters.
It matters. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How long did it take for you to know that's the guy that I'm going to marry?
I think right away it was like, this guy's interesting. There's something here. And then especially the first time we really, one-on-one conversed, it was like, wow, we talked for hours upon hours because there was just a connection there. And then right after we met, shortly after, I was getting ready to spend the summer in Arizona. And right before that, I think it was like 2 weeks before I left. And we had just known each other such a short time. It was still like, I don't know. He's interesting. There could be something here, but don't want to get ahead of myself. You wanted me, I hung out in your home space, and you wanted me to meet your parents, but it was like, too soon. It was too awkward for me. I don't even know yet. totally what I think of you. I like you, but we'll see.
You refused to go inside my parents'
Yeah,
house. So I
it was
drove
too
you
new.
down my parents' street. I said, that's my house. You want to go inside and meet? You're like, no. No, I don't.
Did I say it like that?
Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
I'm
then-
not an outgoing person. I'm more of an
Yes.
introvert at heart. So
Yes.
that was just...
But the best thing is, and we'll end it on this, you were on your way to Arizona. You were going to the airport with your parents, and you guys decided to go to a random pasta house. And I say random because it was one which you guys don't go to.
No, and it wasn't the restaurant we picked out to go to.
And it was a restaurant my parents don't normally go to. And guess who was there when you showed up? My parents.
Yeah, your
And you
parents
saw
walked in.
them. And you went to your parents, I think it's Jesse's parents over there. To your parents.
Yeah,
And so you were forced to meet my parents
I was.
early on, right before you left for the airport and for the summer. So that was a
Yeah.
really cool thing, though, because I think
That was a really cool
everybody
thing.
got to meet.
Yeah, because you met my parents.
Right.
Because I was a poor planner. So but it was good because, yes, you had met my parents. And then that day, my parents and I met your parents in such a weird, bizarre way, too, that we all walked away like, what was that? That seems like something bigger than all of us that was orchestrated. But then that summer while I was away, I think that's when I knew because we talked a lot on the phone and really fell in love that way and really got to know each other well. I mean, as well as you can,
Sure.
in that kind of way. But because you had met my parents and my parents had met you and our parents had met each other and I had met your folks, because I came home from Arizona like, this is the guy. I love him. I want to marry him. And you felt the same at that point. It wasn't like, wait, what? We don't even know these. For our parents, everyone had met. Everyone was aware. So I think it just made things smoother than had that not happened. It would have been way more like, wait, now what? You
Right.
already know you want to marry somebody that we've not even laid eyes on in person?
Yeah.
So, because we met May 6th, 2008, and we got married June 13th, 2009. So we'd known each other a year and a month.
Wow.
We got engaged in November. So, I mean, when you know,
Right.
you know.
Yep.
It was easy. We connected. It was,
Yep. And we don't have to talk about it right now, but my proposal was
epic.
pretty good.
It was epic.
All right, we'll save that for a different day. In the meantime, if you've listened to or watched us for this far into the podcast, if you would, please subscribe to our podcast. We normally don't ask for subscribers. We haven't in the past, but we're asking now. So out of the goodness of your heart, click that subscribe button.
Wow, that's
No,
cheesy.
that was really cheesy. But if you would, thank you very much.